amend the operations budget ordinance number 13558, known as the fiscal year 2020-21 operations budget, amending section 6 so as to appropriate additional funds for the fiscal year activities for the Economic Development Fund revenues and Narcotics Fund services.
Okay, I think
Reserves.
we're going to read this afternoon the alternate version, which just includes the Narcotics Funds Reserve. Councilwoman Burrs, are we ready to go with that one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, we will move on to resolutions. 7A, please.
A resolution authorizing the
Oh.
interim.
Hold on one second. Thank you. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chip. I thought we had them made up, but no, I'm just joking. But I just had a question about the funds. What programs are we utilizing this money for? Like specifically?
Do we have anybody from police department that can speak to that, or Joda? I think Joda.
I'm going to let Deputy Chief Scruggs.
I
go
didn't want to put Chief Scruggs on the spot, on the spot if he wasn't ready to speak to it.
So what was
Did you hear the
question?
question?
No. Which,
Oh, okay.
Question again, please.
Councilwoman, go ahead and repeat
Yeah,
the
what,
question.
Programming or what, programs that we have in place that
For-
we're using, that this money is being used for. the
So, I
narcotics.
mean, it funds several different things. It's, so the reentry programs, it funds the vehicles those guys use, the services, it funds undercover work, just things like that.
Okay, I really just wanted to hear that
Uh,
reentry.
It's a
Okay.
big part of it.
Yeah,
We
thank
talked
you.
about that.
I appreciate it.
All right.
You good, Councilwoman? Councilwoman Burrs?
Yeah, thank you. As I'm sure that's what Chief Scruggs was alluding to. The only thing you can use it for is certain things. It's limited in its use. Daisy, is Daisy here? Thought I saw her. Hey, do you know the list of what it can be used for? If you don't, that's okay.
The narcotics fund is essentially confiscated dollars through drug cases, investigations that have been awarded by the courts. However, the state also directs specific uses for those dollars, and it has to be for police-related activities, drug-related activities. And they buy things like police cars, capital-related expenditures for the operations of the police department and drug-related activities. Hope does that help anymore? You were fine already? Okay.
Of it, just want to make sure we're putting it to the best use, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on now to resolutions under finance. 7A, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the interim treasurer to amend by extending an agreement with SunTrust, now doing business as Trust Bank, for commercial and general bank services, including purchasing card, safekeeping, and custodial accounts for an extended period of 3 months ending September 30, 2021.
Okay, that's just a bit of housekeeping. Any questions or comments? 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Matthew Glenn as a special police officer unarmed for the Land Development Office of the Department of Economic and Community Development to do special duty as prescribed herein, subject to certain conditions.
Any questions or comments? I'm seeing no hands. Moving now to public safety. 7C, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 29465, authorizing acceptance of grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration, Office of Criminal Justice Program for the Victim of Crime Act of 1984 grant for a grant period to be extended from July 1, 2021 through July 30, 2022, in the amount of $600,000 with an increased amount of $200,000 for a total amount of $800,000.
Okay, any questions? This was sort of a last minute item that they found out they were able to get an increase on the grant. Okay, seeing no hands, we'll move now to purchasing questions. Council, do you have any questions concerning any of the purchase items from for this afternoon? And there are several in your packet this afternoon. I'll wait just a minute. We can go back if we need to. Tuesday, June the 29th, council agenda. Any questions or comments regarding any of the items to be heard June the 29th? Very well. Future considerations. Anything on your future considerations that we need to discuss this afternoon? Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you. I have questions on two items.
Okay.
The first is, both of them are under economic and community development. Item B, the resolution declaring surplus the property located at 332 East Martin Luther King Boulevard. Had a conversation and understand that there's a desire to sell this, that there's potentially a community partner. So I Googled it. It looks like that address is one half of a building. Do we own the entire building, and do we intend to surplus the entire building?
I'm going to turn it over to Tony, but I believe on the question of who the property would go to would require a RFP, and that we would go through a traditional process looking for proposals.
Councilwoman Hill, to answer your question about the building in totality, we do own the whole building.
But we're only interested in surplusing half of the building?
We're, there'll probably be a correction on that because that whole unit is what we're looking at surplusing.
Okay.
One half was used for office space and the other half of that building was used to house a lot of our technical equipment.
Interesting. It's an interesting property. It seems like it's probably valuable, assuming Google showed me the right thing. Okay, I'll be interested to hear more about that. My second question is related to item D. And it's a series of questions, actually. And I understand that there will likely be a presentation to council about this, but this pure graphite item is the first pilot that's going to be brought by this administration and before this body, this new elected body. And so I have quite a few questions about it that I'd like to just start talking about now with the hope that the presentation would be quite illuminating next week.
So I can tell you that we're probably going to have to, or at least the details on that, I think we'll have to hold for the special presentation that's coming up next week. But I can try to answer any questions that you might have now.
Well, perhaps I'll go ahead and tell you some of the questions so that you know
That's
that
great.
the presentation will answer them next week.
Yep.
How about that?
Happy to do it.
So during the campaign for both mayor and for city council, there was quite a lot of conversation about how we can make a jobs pilot process more transparent and give our community opportunities to understand the why and what the actual benefit to the community is. And we've all, I think we've probably all heard Helen Burns Sharp's presentations talking about the but for and so forth. And this is an opportunity with a new mayoral administration and new city council to really set some criteria. And so we can't do that necessarily with this one, go backward retroactively with criteria, but I would be interested to know why is this pilot deemed beneficial to the community for next week? I have heard that there may be some type of community benefits agreement. So what does that really look like for this? Knowing that, things are only not really enforceable. How many jobs are going to be created? What are the wages? And what changes is your administration thinking about related to the process for the IDB and HEB boards for addressing the public hearings? That was something that Mayor Kelly committed to, that he would make sure that there was timely hearing of that for the public. And also, when can we expect in a process moving forward, the public to see the pilot request in a timely manner so that they can, be part of the conversation about who will benefit from it. So Jermaine, great to see you. We didn't get to connect before this meeting, but those are a lot of the questions that are swirling around in my mind. This is a great time to do this one better than we've ever done
Sure.
any
So-
other one, right?
Absolutely. So we will have a full presentation about the project next week during our economic development meeting. Typically, what we do is right now, this item is on the future considerations list. So all of the supporting documentation will be revealed once the city council determines that this will move forward. So I have no problem as we continue to work with the chamber and the company on working on the pilot agreements to make sure that those are available to the city council as soon as possible. Typically, those become available would become available this Friday, but I think that we can go ahead and make those available within the next 24 to 48 hours. In the meantime, this will go through the Industrial Development Board on Monday, July the 12th. That is the second Monday of July. Typically, IDB meetings are held the first Monday of July, but because we will be observing the 4th of July holiday this year, on July the 5th, the IDB would actually review this on July the 12th. So the IDB's role is to sort of evaluate the lease agreement, but you all as city council members, as members of an elected body, as legislators, you all will have the ability to see the agreement that will come before the IDB does, and you all will have a chance to weigh in. This is obviously a big project. The state has already announced and sent out a press release announcing the project today as of 11 a.m. And it has lots of implications for our local economy, especially as we prepare to come, as we continue to come out of COVID and we continue to look at a recovery. But you will have a chance to talk to and to ask all of your questions of the chief operating officer of the company next Tuesday, as well as Charles Wood, as well as me. So we will all be here to offer you a full and robust presentation, at which point we will answer all of your questions. And then in regards to the way that we do pilots, so pilots are a little different from TIFs. There's not necessarily a community hearing per se. The IDB will have, they will debate this and they will discuss it during a typical IDB meeting. And then if there are members of the public that wish to address the pilot or that have questions about it, they will have a chance to speak during the IDB meeting. It's different from, say, a TIF where you by law have to have, or by the policies that we've created, we have like a standalone sort of public hearing phase for that. We don't have that for pilots. And so people will have a chance though to talk and to make their opinions heard during the IDB meeting. And again, that would be on Monday, July the 12th. And that meeting, of course, as you know, Councilwoman Hill is held in this room. It'll be here at 11 a.m. And then in terms of the community benefits language, there is language in this pilot agreement that you will see that does speak to some of the community benefits. This is not Nippon Paint, and I'll go ahead and sort of say that, in that this is not located in a neighborhood or a community where the community benefit, in my opinion, should be much more sort of extensive and explicit for members of the neighborhood. This is located in an area that was once a very highly industrialized facility. And so this is our attempt to also put this facility back into use and to put it back into motion. And so But with that, I'll take any other questions. But yes, we will have a full hearing next Tuesday. Or I'm
Just
sorry,
to,
full
to put,
presentation.
to put a slightly finer point on the process and the public hearing, how we've done it and how the hearing does or does not exist, public comment during an IDB meeting. The public has asked for more information about these sooner before they have come all the way down the stream, so to speak, before they're about to be approved.
Right.
And in talking with the chamber, I understand that these are touchy subjects. And as a person in private industry myself, I understand that there's only so much public comment a private industry really would like
Right.
to hear. But this is where we live, right?
Right.
These are our streets. This is our air, our water, and our economy. And Mayor Kelly made a commitment when he was running that he would work to have a public hearing before the IDB board and the HEB board for the public. And I made that commitment as well. And I believe Councilwoman Dotley made that commitment as well. I don't know of any others that did. I won't speak for them, but I know that she and I both made that commitment. And it may not be an easy process to implement, but it's certainly something that, if not for this pilot, because this pilot is moving along, but for the future pilots, this is the opportunity that we have as a new government to improve that process. So just know that that's something that's going to be important to me as we go along, is figuring out what's the Chattanooga way that we're going to approve jobs pilots.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I think that if that's something that the city council or the industrial development board want to implement, that's certainly open to the council. I will, defer to, in this case, to Councilwoman Dotley, because this is in her district, and to Councilwoman Coonrod, because she is the chair of the Economic Development Committee. What I would also say is that the thing about this project is that this has sort of been in the works now and sort of started before
Certainly.
you all came into office. And so from that perspective, we have certainly been in negotiations with the company to figure out the best way to move this project forward. So us bringing this project to you now is affirmation both from Mayor Coppinger and Mayor Kelly that this is a project that they want to see happen in the community.
Jermaine, we
yes, sir.
do have several other council people that would
Sure.
like to, I think, weigh in on this. And this is on future considerations. All of this will be discussed in our
Presentation.
Economic Development Committee next week. Councilwoman Coonrod.
My question was about number 8, but I do want to say, Jenny Hill, I would have loved to get you updated because I have been involved with this, and I just felt like the opportunity to connect as the chair of economic development, like you didn't give me that opportunity. You just came out blazing guns, and I get it totally. And also the other thing, I'm not for certain what commitment you and Councilwoman Dotley made to throw everybody else up under the bus, but we all are concerned about economic development and the best for our city of Chattanooga. So I just want that to be known. And then, yeah.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Well, I don't want to go in the back and forth, but I kind of felt thrown under the bus because I know all of us work extremely hard. But my question is about did the price increase for the leasing of Eastgate Town Center?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me defer to Tony if he's here.
Sorry, Councilwoman, could you ask that again?
Did the price increase?
I think there is a slight increase in the lease price. The property owners have had a slight increase on that lease on a regular basis. We are in the process of looking at some consolidations, as our chief operating officer mentioned before, and that's still going to cause us to request having this lease renewed for one more year to allow us that time for planning and being able to make the changes that are necessary.
Okay, because I've, been watching this. That's
Yeah.
how I know it went up. Because I think it was like 84,000 and I brought some concerns, but
Yep.
I think that we have 18 sites and some of those sites are underutilized. And I would really like to see that our senior activities in our centers be strengthened, and 87,000 across 18 sites most definitely could do that. Or we most definitely, if we paying this for a year, we could clearly afford to build our seniors their own personal site or rehab some of the buildings that we already have. It's just, yeah, this is a red flag for me continuously that every year the price is going up. I've spoken to several seniors. I know the ones that frequent this location, they don't want to move the location, but other seniors that do not attend the Eastgate Town Center, they feel like senior services aren't available for them unless they have to come or they have to come to Eastgate, and that's just not fair. And we keep talking about, equitable opportunities for all, access for all. And, our seniors, they just don't have the access, a lot of them, to go there. Like, we need to really look at.
Well, the administration's
options.
plan for during part of the restructuring will be addressing some of those concerns across the spectrum of all of our community centers, as well as looking at the plans that the administration is putting together now to relocate the senior center that currently in that location. So it's still going to take a little time in planning, and that's why we're just seeking to get that approval for one more year.
Okay, one more year. Is there any language in there that's saying like additional approval for 2 additional years, they extend it out?
No.
You know how y'all kind of
No.
slip that in there sometimes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if this question will involve Jermaine, Joda, or Ms. O'Donnell, but when we're putting together, and I'm sure this has been probably already constructed, can you talk a little bit about the strength of the clawback language? Because in the past, when I was first aware of a pilot, it was the Alston pilot, and we did have some issues with that. And then I think we have done stronger, obviously, with the M&M and the also Nippon, and understanding the benefits of a pilot for our community. But I think, can you talk a little bit about the strength of our clawback language and the enforcement of it? Because I believe, and I appreciate the reports you're giving to us, I think it's on a quarterly basis of the performance of the pilots. If they're not meeting the specifications or benchmarks, we are enforcing them. Is that correct?
That's right. So the mayor has the authority to determine how much or how little they want to pursue a company if a company is found to be not meeting the pilot requirements. Now, keep in mind that when you look at pilot requirements, you are oftentimes looking at not only the capital investment, but also the average aggregate wages and also the number of jobs that were created. And so sometimes a company may not be in compliance, say in year 2 of the pilot, but they might be back in compliance in year 3. And so what you often want to do is, as an economic developer and as those of us in the administration, is we do want to sort of work with the company to make sure that there is a pathway for them to get back in compliance if they are not in compliance. So I realize that oftentimes we think of some of the companies that come into town as big, big evil corporate partners, and we as a city should just bang them over the head with a hammer at all times. Well, that's not what we want to do if we want to have a healthy business relationship where we are constantly encouraging businesses to relocate here, expand here, and create jobs. No company predicted what was going to happen this past year with COVID. And so there would have been massive disruptions, for example, when it came to hiring or to capital investment because of the pandemic this past year. And there are things that will come up either in our economy or in a business's operations that may cause a company to get off track. But having said that, we do have clawback language in this agreement. The clawback language outlines a formula whereby the company would be considered in violation if they don't meet a certain part of the jobs numbers, as well as the capital investment. And it specifically outlines and explicitly states what the clawback provision is. To your point, Councilman Ledford, prior to sort of the stuff that happened with Alstom, we didn't really have any clawback language in agreements. And that is what has caused the city to take a different position of inserting clawback language into our agreements that more explicitly state what the penalty is if a company is not in compliance. But just as I would urge the council to just remember is, again, a company, there's a difference between a company maybe missing a jobs number in year 2 of a pilot, and then, as opposed to missing the jobs number for the first 5 years of a pilot. And so I would just urge people to keep that in mind.
Very good. I appreciate that and appreciate the comprehensiveness of that overview to make sure that they are successful and they do what we want them to do. If I can, to just point to the presentation, please make sure we cover that but-for test. I think it's very important for the public, as Councilwoman Hill stated. It's something that we've all grown more aware of. And I think that, spending all the time with Mr. Wood, I understand how competitive it is out there competing against other cities our size, but I think it's real important we cover that but-for in the presentation.
Absolutely. We will cover that. And just sort of as a note to that, part of the thing about the but-for test, which Mayor Kelly very strongly believes in, and which Mayor Burke also believed in, is the fact that projects, when they don't meet the but-for test, they don't actually make it to you all. Okay, so you never see them, you never hear about them in terms of wanting a pilot. They just don't get to you, because at that point, we've sort of shot it down already because we didn't feel like it met the but-for test. So if we're bringing a project to you at this point, we are saying we believe that this meets the but-for test, but we will be sure to cover that next week.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Councilman Byrd?
Chair, Jermaine.
Yes, sir.
When you all are making this presentation, and I definitely talk to you offline as well, but we also always hear outside of the but-for test,
Yes.
why you do not make sure people in Chattanooga get the job. Like,
Yes.
make sure that the people in Chattanooga get the job. This place is right next to the west side.
Right.
You have to hire people from the west side. And if you don't, this don't meet the but-for test.
Right.
But it's impossible. And through the pilots I've been working through, it's impossible to hold a company hostage to say, you got to hire 50 people from the west side. And if those 50 people from the west side don't come, this
Right.
place doesn't get to operate as business, and
Right.
they get to shut down. And then they say, okay, you should have gotten a housing pilot to
Mhm.
go here. Why are you getting jobs? Nobody's working anyway. We don't need jobs. We need affordable housing. Why did you not go get affordable housing to go here? And, and since you didn't get affordable housing, that doesn't meet the but-for test, get away. So we get bombarded. And a lot of times it's not the public, it's small groups of people that make a lot of noise and feel that they are the voices of everyone. And a lot of times people understand why this process is so tedious and how it works.
Sure.
But that little group of voices keep pushing and pushing, and it makes us all look bad. It makes us all look like we don't care or we don't have the best interest for Chattanooga. And you get tired of hearing that. So
Yes.
during that presentation, if you can please help articulate that. Why is it not a housing project? And is there any people coming to build affordable housing, workforce housing right here at this site with the money that they have to implement and put into it? Is it even feasible to do?
Right.
Because that will help out a lot with the naysayers.
I will be certainly happy to try to cover that in the presentation, but if it's okay, I'll speak about some of that stuff now.
Go for it.
So the facility that we're looking at for this project is a bona fide manufacturing facility.
Right.
It is not housing. Okay. It is not going to be housing. It is a huge facility. Many of you may remember the facility because it is where the Hamilton County Health Department was doing COVID-19 testing at the height of the pandemic. Okay. It's a manufacturer. That's all it was ever designed to be. So it's not going to be housing because it was designed to be an industrial facility. And so this is an attempt for us to put that industrial facility back to use with a company that is making some innovative products. Now, the thing that I would probably articulate to my constituents, Councilman Byrd, is this is not a zero-sum game. When you hear the term pilot, It doesn't mean that if we do a pilot for this company, that we can't do a pilot for affordable housing. It just depends on the project. And whether or not the project meets those certain requirements. And so that's the conversation that I think we have to have, is just understanding that as we articulate sort of a comprehensive economic development strategy, there is a room for both to exist. There is room for us to work with businesses to recruit jobs, and there is also room for more affordable housing to be created. And that is something that we should be committed to, and something that very much that Mayor Kelly is committed to as an administration. Now, I believe that by law, we are prohibited from specifying that workers come from a specific zip code. I believe that is against state law, which is why we can't do that. However, we have tried to put in, as I mentioned to Councilwoman Hill previously and to Councilman Ledford, we have tried to insert language into our agreement for this company that begins to speak to that community benefit, understanding that we will eventually bump up against the limits of the law, which prohibit us, as my understanding from Phil Noblet, is that we do not have the ability to specify that workers come from specific zip codes. But that doesn't mean that we can't do everything we can to try to make sure that we create jobs for local people.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for Jermaine while he is up here? You know, I think there are some businesses that want to be here, and I think there are some businesses that we want to be here. And I feel like Pure Graphite is one of those businesses that we want to be here. So I hope they bring a dynamite presentation and all the potential I think that's there in this company. Any other questions for Jermaine? Okay, thank you, Jermaine. Anything else for future considerations, council? Okay. We should have a, which I thought we were going to put legislative matters. Maybe we've taken that off, I guess, since we now have strategic planning. Is there anything else that needs to come before the council? Then at this time, we have covered all items on the agenda. Anything else that needs to come before the council? Council, I think if you will look, you have a blue folder in front of you in preparation for next week, strategic planning. If you would peruse through that. If you have any questions, contact me or Councilwoman Burrs. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. For other questions, I wanted to take a second to ask Joda, if I may. The 30th, the end of the month is approaching fast. And a lot of people are, uncertain if they're going to be still employed with the city of Chattanooga, if they're going to other positions. Can you give us a timeline, like when those decisions will be made?
Sure. So every appointed employee has been is receiving an individual communication, letting them know of their status before the end of the day on Wednesday. But we've largely communicated with every single appointed employee about their appointment status. And so we have informed several folks that their appointments ultimately end on June 30th. And the reason we did this was so that we had the continuity of government given a 6-day transition. But at the same time, to your point, even through the reorganization of government, every single civil service employee, we are not considering any form of layoff. So unless you were an appointee and you signed a piece of paper saying, I understand that my job status is tied to the previous mayor, your job is safe, and we are not considering layoffs or any sort of workforce reductions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now, will those appointments, are they all going to be national searches, or what's the plan for that?
So we've asked every single department head that we have said that we're putting into an interim status that they could go in ahead and apply for their position. That said, there are going to be some positions that we know are going to be national searches. For example, the administrator of public works is going to be a national search, given that the pool of talent there often runs through very specific professional associations, recognizing also that we have talent here in Chattanooga. But then there are some we know are going to be searches within our community. So there are different levels to the national searches that we're going to be doing. So some we intend on working through professional associations all across the country. Some that we may go ahead and work with potentially a firm to find the best candidate. That's how we're thinking about the search for our next police chief, for example. And local candidates are obviously in every single case invited to apply.
Like the sidebar conversation after this. I just have a few concerns, but
Sure.
I'll talk to you after.
Would be happy to.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hester?
Everybody who involved with the Brainerd Midtown Town Hall last night. Thank you again for being there to participate. Appreciate it.
Okay. I'm seeing no other lights, and at this time we have no other business, so we will adjourn this meeting and see you at 6.